Growing up, I've always loved cars. I was always around them. They're my passion. Other people use art or even martial arts as their escape from reality. Mine's getting behind the wheel. There's something about the sound of an engine that really takes me away from all the stresses in life. I truly feel free. I like speed. To me, success isn't having the most money or the biggest house. To have something I built myself that performs at an extremely high level is a total win for me. There is what I like to call a car enthusiast holy trinity, where functionality, style, and driving emotion meet. The purpose of a car influences the way you make it look and perform, and the way it performs makes you feel a certain way. Car enthusiasts ourselves, to this day, cannot even describe the feeling. It's just there.
My name is Ryan Chapman. I drive a 2003 350Z. It's a stock motor with a bunch of bolt-ons and a couple ECU mods to it. It makes about 320 crank horsepower, and I use it primarily for drifting because it doesn't have plates and it's a little drift machine.
My name's Matt Vetter. I have a 95 Nissan 240SX. It has a SR20 swapped in it, a bunch of random mods, like supporting mods, just to make it last a long time. Makes like 250 wheel horsepower roughly.
I got into cars later than the average person. I was about 18, maybe even 19, and I just got my first car. That would have been 18. I got my first car. It was a Honda Civic. I didn't have any plans to modify it or become a car guy per se. I just wanted to learn manual, so I ended up getting a manual car, and then some of my buddies that were into cars messaged me and showed me how you could slam a car and put wheels on it and change the aspects of it, and I liked how it looked and the feel of it, so I started off with that, and then I realized I didn't like front wheel drive, so when that car was over with, I saved up and I bought the 350Z.
I think after like Fast and Furious, that kind of made me want a car a lot more. And then I watched Tokyo Drift, and I really wanted to like drift. So, and then I always kind of knew about 240s.
That's the guilty truth, eh?
Yeah, and I always wanted a 240 ever since I was a kid. I remember seeing an S13, and like that was the car I wanted. So as soon as I was 16, I had like enough money saved up, and I went to Oshawa and I bought a rusty old 91 S13. But that's like what got me into drifting and sparked like my love for drifting. And ever since then, I've just been like working my ass off to try and do everything possible to
just
drift.
Get as much track time as you can. So, the style of drifting that we're into is more a grassroots style, like drifting. So like big horsepower and competitions and going into a series with points really isn't our style. So we're more about, like clean paint, rare parts. It's all about style. It's all about looking good. You could be the best driver on the track, but if you don't have a good looking car, no one really cares. So like we like the 3-piece wheels, fitment.
As dumb as possible.
It's the dumbest setup possible.
If it looks stupid, it's probably cool.
It makes it that much cooler. Yeah. The moment that would stand out the most to me would definitely be my first time driving on track, and it was actually with him, behind him. I was chasing down his S14, and I was definitely way too far away to call it tandem drifting at the time, but because it was my first time on track, I definitely considered it tandeming. And I would just follow your line where you kicked out the car, I would kick out my car, and it was just that adrenaline and that feeling you get when you're controlling a car that's out of control, if that makes any sense, is incredible, and you just want more and more and more.
It's like the feeling you get. So it's not going to be the same for everybody, but for a lot of people, I think they get that same feeling when they go drifting, where like they are addicted and they can't stop, and like it's almost unexplainable to like put it into words, but if you do it, you will understand how we feel, and you'll see why we do it. It's really fun. That's like the easiest way to put it.
Well, it shows with some people. Like some guys have hit like rough patches in their life where they don't have the funds to do it, and they're still out there with absolutely beat cars because they just can't get enough of it.
My name is Martin Rudenberg. I own a 1989 BMW 325i, and it has a single overhead cam 2.5 liter. It makes 170 horsepower, and yeah, it's a pretty interesting car. It's kind of one of the last simple BMWs, pre-E36 and E46 era. My first, what I consider to be good project car that I really enjoyed was my 1987 325e, and I drove it home too. So I went to like MTO that day and put it in my name, and then drove it from this small town all the way back up to like York Region, Greater Toronto area. And on the way back, things just were falling apart in the car. Like the horn stopped working halfway through, the turn signal stopped working. I was so overwhelmed with excitement from purchasing like my first vintage 6-cylinder rear-wheel drive manual sports car that I did a big donut in my girlfriend's neighborhood and smashed the engine block through the radiator. So it puked coolant everywhere, and I drove it home leaking coolant. So like I really screwed the car up a lot on my drive home. What I use the car for mostly is sort of a summer daily driver, as well as kind of an ongoing project car. And my goal is to sort of keep the car running at all times so that theoretically I can pull it out of the garage and go for a cruise, but constantly improve upon what's already there and make the car handle better, go faster, look better, sound better. I like the lines of the car because it's such a boxy shape, but it still looks really sporty. A lot of cars from the 80s sort of had that angular kind of lines to them, and that's kind of why I like the 80s the most out of all the generations for cars. Just in general, I think a lot of cars from the 80s look really a lot more aggressive than any other decade. But particularly the E30 is really iconic. You know, the 4 headlights and the kidney grille. Everybody kind of knows it's a BMW just from looking at the front of it. And the E30 was really the first modern BMW. It marked like the first 3 Series that was really a performance-driven car. The feeling of the car, the kind of relationship it gives you with the road, and the feedback you get from just the steering input, the throttle input, and just kind of the tight, small, compact, lightweight chassis, it relates to the road so much better than any new car. But especially the Germans did a really good job of designing a tight chassis. So the feeling you get when you drive the car is really indescribable unless you've driven anything remotely similar. Like a front-engined, rear-wheel drive, manual transmission vehicle is something that no other platform can really come close to.
Hello, my name is Daniel Mason, and this is my 1979 Fiat Abarth 131 Brava Racing. It has a 2-liter twin ITB, twin cam, inline 4, producing 210 horsepower to the crank and about 180 to the wheels. And I primarily use this car to drive every day in the summer. I specifically purchased this car because I wanted something that was different and something that stood out from all the other normal cars you see. There's only 2 of these cars in North America, as Fiat only imported 2 in 1979. And it's an extremely fascinating car. I really love driving it specifically because it's different and there's nothing like this else on the road. What makes this car special to me really is kind of the body style. It's very reminiscent of the the early 80s and late 70s box style. It really is like a huge rectangle. It's also an interesting car. The lines of it I really like, with the extra fender flares and the spoiler in the front bumper. It makes for a completely different car than the original one. This car is produced in many different body styles. There had a 4-door, it had a coupe, and it even had a convertible variant. But this is easily my favorite. The Brava Racing is the one that has the bigger engine and different wheels. This one came with the Abarth magnesium wheels. With that being said, the car isn't an original Fiat car too. It was a Abarth Sport tuned. The next thing that I really like to talk about when it comes to my car is the way it makes me feel when I drive it. It feels like nothing else I get behind. It's a really connected feel to the road. A lot of the cars you drive now feel like you're playing a video game, and that's kind of, it's not as fun as the way cars were. This car is bone simple, which it was built with a passion that can only be described by true Fiat and Italian car enthusiasts, is the effort and passion that went into building this car in the first place. and that emotion comes out when you drive it. So, for example, it has manual brakes, manual steering, manual windows. It has nothing. It has no air conditioning. It has no heat. It has no fan. Even though those were features, they've been taken out. 5-speed manual, rear-wheel drive, front engine. It's everything you want in a sports car. Going back to the way this car makes me feel, it's almost an indescribable feeling that you get when you drive a car like this. That's had so much work done to it. That's been through, multiple marriages, multiple engine swaps, multiple owners, and to finally be the owner of this car with a hand-built engine and something that I can say that I own a piece of history when I own this. To get behind the wheel and drive something like this is absolutely surreal. I've driven other older cars in the past, but nothing is actually compared to this. I'm not sure if that's just because I feel sentimental to it because I personally own it, but the feeling I get when I drive this is just really something you have to experience for yourself.
Indescribable. The feeling described by 3 passionate car enthusiasts. The outcome of the combination of automotive function and form. When those two meet, they create the final ingredient, the feeling. It is these 3 aspects that make who we are as car enthusiasts. Many of us are very misunderstood. For those who don't believe us, I have just one thing to say. Get behind the wheel.